Welcome to Unshut, where nothing is off the table, keeping quiet and holding back is no longer an option. I am your host, Mo. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome.
Hi.
You're my first guest on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So let's start with you introducing your name.
Okay.
Let's tell everyone who are you? Who is this stranger in my house right now?
Okay, so hey y'all, my name is Amaya from Orange County, the OC. I moved to Texas 4 years ago, went to Texas State, and now I'm in Austin, Texas. I'm a production assistant for Connect Her. It's a nonprofit that focuses on global women's issues, igniting social change through film. So I love what I do, and I'm also a content creator.
I want to start off by sharing a quick story with you. I came across your profile because we were at an event together.
Yeah.
We missed each other. I happened to be there before you. I left maybe 5 minutes before you got there. Fast forward to like the end of the event, I saw them starting to tag you on stuff as well. This is why I believe in a lot of like manifestation, because when I clicked on your page, of course I snooped.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Had to go through all your photos.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I think she's going to be a good person to eventually DM.
Yeah.
Fast forward to I'm now starting a podcast. It's interesting how you don't know how something's going to work out, because I was literally thinking a reel or maybe doing like a photo shoot together.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that.
And now we're here doing a podcast together. So,
Wow, that is amazing. I never think about like people looking at my page at all. I don't know why, but I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like it just clicked that. I'm like, people be looking, I have no idea. You never know who's watching.
You never know who's
really
watching.
don't ever know who's watching.
The concept of stranger danger was for me to creatively figure out how to take my networking skills, be creative with the podcast, and how do I mix both of them together.
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook specifically, I'm MySpace days too. I'm a little older than you. So I thought, how can I bring that to this table? Because networking is something I've done my entire career, and I like to think I'm kind of good at it. So how can I apply that into podcasting?
Yeah.
And so I brainstormed this idea of stranger danger.
Yeah.
Let's meet some of my followers in person for the first time and just record it. That way we don't stay just friends through computers or through our phones. So here we are. Welcome to Stranger Danger.
That. It's a great idea, because I don't go to strangers' house.
Yeah.
Honestly, like even going to events, I don't talk to a lot of people. And so I texted my brother. I was like, "Hey, are you free? Are you free?" He's like, "If I don't hear from you in 2 hours, I'm busting down the door."
Yes. Well, and
it's okay.
And isn't it funny how and I thought about this after I invited you over, because I thought, you know what? If I invited her over to like a studio, like a commercial space, it would be totally different.
Yeah.
But because I'm having you come over to my house, it's so different. Side note, you guys, being from California, another thing I did not know until recently. So let's start with that. What was growing up in California like for you?
No one's ever really asked me that. So I'm from Irvine. I don't know if you've ever heard of Irvine. So we call it the bubble. It was the safest city in America at one point. Very green. Everything's like meticulously placed. It almost doesn't feel real. Very diverse. 50% of the population is Asian and 2% of the population is Black. So I grew up being the only Black girl in my grade a lot. That was very, very rough, because I wanted to, you want to fit in, just naturally when you get into a community, you want to connect with people, you want to look like people, you want to act like, others around you, and I didn't. And then on top of that, up until I was 7, I was raised just by my mom, and she was raised by her mom, and that was my white side of my family. And so I didn't really have any connection to my Black side at all.
Gotcha.
And I realized in these past couple of years, I honestly believed in white supremacy. Like, I just thought white people were better. And I thought the best thing that I could do with my life is marry a white man. Nope, not going to college, nothing. It was like, let me just marry a white man. And then, the mixed kid fetish was totally into that, of like, oh, the curly blonde hair and the blue eyes and a light skin, but can tan. Like, I believed it so much and I wanted that. But that's what the media told me. It's what my environment told me. And I just believed it. And mind you, my support system, I feel like, is unmatched. Like, I would not be where I'm at without my support system, my family, my friends. I'm glad that I grew up where most of the people there spoke different languages. Like, I would walk down the halls and not understand the conversations going on.
Yeah.
Because everybody was speaking a different language. Like, it was just so diverse. The fact that I grew up where there were more girls wearing hijabs than there were Black people. Like, that's not a very common American experience.
Right.
So I think with growing up around all of those cultures, I've made it my mission for there to be diversity and inclusion wherever I go. And constantly, I'm like, oh, if it's not, I'm bringing it to the table. You have to take up that space.
Absolutely.
So,
especially when you know what it's like to not feel included or what it's like to feel like the odd one out. Interestingly enough, when it comes to growing up in California, so many people think, and yes, California is very diverse.
Yeah.
For me, for example, I grew up with a lot of Armenians in school as well. So I was in like Pasadena area, Highland Park, where it was primarily Hispanic.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of other races there. Yeah. But when I was a lot younger, when I was in maybe kindergarten, being in the Hollywood area, I grew up with a lot of white and Armenian people there. And so it's interesting because you think that because it's so diverse, you will not feel like you're out.
Yeah.
But it's not like that.
Nope.
It's one of the reasons why I try to be so inclusive as well with other people, because I know what it's like to be around so many other races but yet still feeling so out. And people have this idea that because you grew up in a place like California where it's so diverse, you don't feel that, but it's not.
It's not. Know? Yeah. What I always tell people is, America's like, oh, we're a melting pot. We're not a melting pot. We're a poorly untossed salad.
Oh, I love that.
Like, if you really think about it, like, white people, they're the majority, so they're going to be the lettuce. But then if you don't toss your salad right and really mix it, it's like you got some carrots over there, some tomatoes. Like, we're all kind of in our own ethnic groups, and then, like, we kind of mingle and touch each other a little bit. But there's not that inclusion. There's not that integration. But yeah, that's what I tell people. I'm like, we're really an untossed salad because it's like, oh, this is Chinatown. This is Koreatown.
I personally hope that people that tune in understand that concept. I remember when I moved from California to Colorado, which is Colorado even the West Coast? Is that considered the West Coast?
I don't think so.
Listen, geography is not everything. Okay, so
it's on the west side. It's on the west side of the states. So we'll take it. We'll take it.
But it's not too far from California. Yeah. When I moved to Colorado, it was the first time I learned what a spick was.
Wait, I don't know what that is.
It's just it's a really bad term for like an immigrant. It's supposed to be something very rude. I learned what that word was when we moved out there, and I also realized how many people did not know where Guatemala was. The amount, and I'm talking like fucking teachers. Like, teachers would be like, where are you from? Guatemala? Is that in Mexico? What part of Mexico is that from?
No.
I couldn't even make this up. And it was for the first time that I realized, like, oh my gosh, like, again, you would think back then it was still progressive, right? No, like, people still have no idea.
Yeah.
People are still so uneducated when it comes to the topic of other cultures and other races. It was a little bit more shocking to see how teachers were also very ignorant. I mean, come on, Guatemala. What part of Mexico is that from, So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it goes back into, like, the integration. Like, okay, you have all these cultures, but you're not even really teaching what's going on, like, American history. Like, barely talking about Black history. I didn't learn about Black history outside of MLK and Rosa Parks. I did not know really Black history.
Juneteenth?
Didn't know.
Literally until just a few years ago, I had no idea. Never even heard of it.
Yeah. No idea. My parents, though, what I give them major props for this is that whenever I had like a history project, they would always be like, you have to choose a black person. And I'd be like, I don't want to. Yeah. I really don't. I'm like, can I give this whole black thing a break? Mm-hmm. But now I'm so glad that they did, because it's important to just remember where my people have come from. Mm-hmm. And also, we still got some problems. I told my brother, I'm very protective over him. I mean, because he's my brother, but he's mixed, so he's kind of lighter, and then he has red hair. So it's not often you see, a black kid with red hair. And
I love it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
Yeah.
People always think, he dyes it or whatever. But what I get from my friends, and from a very early age when we started going to school, I noticed like girls would just be like, oh, we would have great babies. We would have great mixed babies. And mind you, I was on that fetish game of like mixed kids are better and all the things.
Which, by the way, I've never heard that term before until now.
Really?
Never heard of it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe it's a black community thing, but it was just like they would always look at him as somebody who could get them to have cute babies, and then there's like clout with having cute mixed black babies, and I'm like, no, I'm not here for that, because my brother is a person. He's very kind, he's very thoughtful, he's a gentleman. Like, there's so many things to him, and it just makes me think about slavery. It always goes back to slavery, but I'm like, there used to be breeding houses. Like, they used to just use black people to breed. And so when I think about people, like thinking about my brother as someone, it's weird to say breed with, but like just so they can get what they want. And I'm like, it's similar mentality of like, oh, we're going to have these people breed so I can get more property.
Interesting.
But like, that's how I think though. I'm like, I'm always kind of just questioning.
Yeah. How much of not wanting to talk about that out loud, or not wanting to talk about it in general, how much of that has to do with the fact that we have always been told, like, get over it. That mentality has shut a lot of people up, and I think it's why it's important to be diverse, to get into conversations with people who are completely different than you, because those topics that are overplayed, they're overplayed because we're told that we've talked about it too much, that we need to move on. But there's still conversations that impact us to this day. And what's interesting enough for me too, and it's something I'm learning right now in our conversation, is that you're not an elderly woman, you're a younger generation, and yet you are still impacted by everything, specifically when it comes to your race.
Yeah. No, it's so crazy. Because I'm like, it really wasn't that long ago.
I didn't even think this would be a topic, but I want to bring this up to you because I'm interested to see what you think about it. Something that really bothers me is when people have a conversation with me, and because I'm Hispanic, they'll adjust their way of saying something, because like, oh, right, isn't it so delicious? It's bien rico. You know what I mean? And what's so crazy is I have seen people do it to some of my black friends who are like, they go from talking to all of a sudden they get into this like, girl. Yeah. And in my head, I'm thinking, you can't just talk to me like a regular person. You automatically assume that you're going to be more relatable to me if you bring in some Hispanic salsa into the mix. How do you feel when you have conversations with someone and you notice that they start to change their tone because they think that their tone is relatable to you?
Well, there's a few things I think about that. First, I'm always checking. I'm like, I can tell if people have been around black people or not. Or it's that they have, but they don't view black people like they're people. If someone tells me they voted for Obama out of nowhere, red flag. Because I'm like, why?
Huge red flag.
Why? Because he's black? I hope you're not just voting because he's black. Give me a policy, something, because we're so much more than our skin tone. And I think that's something that I'm constantly trying to communicate to people, is like, we're so much more than our skin tone, and people just cannot look past that.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that it's not only happening to the black community, but to other communities as well, where it's like, oh, this is where it stops.
Yeah.
we're not going to treat you like a person,
Yeah.
like a regular person. But I also, so another thought that I had was code switching. A lot of minorities and people of color have to code switch in the means to like survive and for us to get opportunities. But when it's like vice versa, it's not the same. The intentions are different.
Yeah.
We're trying to survive. Y'all are just not really viewing us as regular people. And it's like othering us.
I want people to also know that whenever it's done to me, I don't immediately jump into defensive mode or I don't get combative. It's all about being self-aware. It's being able to catch yourself. Did I do that? And it's not to say that it will not happen to me. I can think of instances where I've adapted to what someone looks like and tried to be relatable with my tone of voice. Completely inappropriate. Did I catch it? Did I think about it? Did I go home and not dismiss what I did to be aware in the future? I think that's what sets these experiences apart. I even get that as a gay male, where someone who would not even be flamboyant, all of a sudden they feel so comfortable with being like, yes, bitch, yes, queen. And in my head, I'm like, what? When the fuck have you even ever heard me say that, you know? Now, when I meet people and I get really comfortable, that little gayness does come out. I got a little, you know, specifically when we start talking about fashion and luxury, and it does come out. So I'm specifically talking about the people that I meet for the first time who are trying to be relatable. And I don't think people are self-aware enough to realize how insulting that is, especially when you add race into it, you know? So that's a really good topic. And it's crazy because even when I was saying the word black to you, I'm thinking in the back of my head, am I being rude? Am I being offensive? You have to be aware of those things. And
Absolutely.
The idea that for so long, even now in 2023, we're told, get over it. Not everything is about race. I'm like, no, but it's easy to say that when you haven't been treated like your race was everything.
I had to take a break from talking about race. After 2020, I was just like, I was so disappointed with a lot of people. They would support me, but they wouldn't support the black community. Like I was a good black. It was just so weird to say because I'm like, not even a black person, just a good black. And I would often be the excuse for people's racism. I have a black friend. I have a black niece.
Let's stop there. People think that's not really a thing. The amount of times that I have been the golden boy in the group, in the conversation, just so that someone can deny the fact that they're somewhat ignorant or a little bit racist. No, it's like actually a truth. And yes, this is talked about a lot, but not enough. When I tell you that for so long, I haven't shared a lot of experiences with even people that I'm really close with because they sound fucking made up. You know, like the scene in a movie where like the kid's eating, you know, in the bathroom? When I tell people that I have actually lived through situations like that because I was treated differently for being brown, think of how many people out there have had the same experience, but because it's overplayed, they don't share them. It breaks my heart because I'm like, no, these are experiences that, yes, you can turn the other cheek and just pretend like it doesn't happen. It's probably not happening to you, but it is happening to us still today. The amount of times that I have felt because I speak properly or because I don't have an accent, I'm treated differently than my mom, how she's treated. So
I go to a new church at Texas State. And I had a really good vibe with them. And every Monday they gave like free food to college students. And my saying was like, if it's free, it's for me. So I'm going to pull up. Don't even worry about it. I will be there. So I go and I'm like one of the first in line. There's a few other students that go ahead of me and they're getting 2 slices of pizza. The people that are giving out the food, they were volunteers from like a different church, but had to be in their like 70s. Like they were definitely older. And I go and I'm like, hi, like, thank you so much for doing this. You guys don't have to do this. Looking past me, like not even giving me eye contact. And I'm not thinking too much. I'm like, homeboy's old. And so I put my plate out for my pizza and he gives me like 1 slice. And I'm just kind of sitting there because I thought everybody was getting 2. And there was nothing. I was like, okay, well, thank you so much. And like there was like another lady giving out a drink. And I was like, thank you so much. Once again, she didn't talk to me either. I was like, okay, this is weird, but like whatever. I'm not going to think too much about it. Until I sit down with the other students and they all had 2 pieces. And I said, hey, did you guys ask for 2? They're like, no, they just gave me 2. I do not want to think when a conflict or something comes up, it's because I'm Black. Then there was this Black girl who I knew had really never been there. And I was like, hey, like, if there's another Black person, I'm like, come sit next to me, like, there's power in numbers. I was like, hey, girl, like, come sit next to me. I see she has 1 piece of pizza, and I was like, no, please. And I told her, I said, did you ask for just 1? She was like, no. And I just had this, like, I felt so defeated, just so sad, because I really wanted to like this church. And I actually ended up being at that church for 2 more years. But I just never expected to experience that kind of microaggression, racism in a church setting. I was so upset. And I'm like, I cannot believe that just happened. Only 2 minorities in that room. We just got 1 slice. And I'm like, it's pizza. Like, I shouldn't be like pumped and so much energy about some pizza and I didn't get my slice. But I'm like, dang it. Why? What did I do? And I was so nice. Compared to the other kids, I didn't even say thank you.
People still have the audacity to think that you're making it about race again. But I want to go back to something you just said, because this really does prove why it's just not easy to get over. You had to swallow that for another 2 years. 2 years you had to swallow that experience. Let's even just take race out of it, right? Let's go ahead and pretend that this was a white woman in a relationship, right? That for 2 years she's been swallowing the fact that her husband treats her different, right? I don't even know how to even make that make sense. I'm trying to be relatable here to all audiences. But for 2 years, you swallow it and you don't do anything, and then you wonder why she fucking snaps. We swallow it, and it's also because we're trying to protect the peace, right? We're not trying to be confrontational about it, right? And so there you go. You carry it for another 2 years, and people wonder why it's so difficult for us to just move on, to just drop it, just let
trust.
it go.
Yeah. You can only sweep so much under the rug until you trip over it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, I remember very vividly when I went to go get my license for the first time. And I asked, I'm like, hey, can I get one of the books to study? His response to me was, we don't have it in Spanish.
What?
I just asked you in English. My mom walked over and she was like, well, do you have it in Italian? We speak other languages than just English and Spanish. And he was like, well, no. She's like, so can we have the one in English?
Yeah.
He was just like, yeah, here you go. Sometimes people also forget why you don't speak up in moments. Shock factor. It is real. You know that saying, like, it sent me. Don't I know it too well? I'm sure you know it too well. Because it is so easy to be like, well, if I would have been there, I would have spoken up. Why didn't you? No. There are some situations just truly my soul is like, be right back. Be right back.
Be right back. America. They're like, leave. I'm like, I'm working on it. Okay? I'm really trying to live in like Coma with George Clooney. Yeah. Like,
I know.
Get me out.
Talked about church.
Yep.
Let's get into it.
So I got saved when I was 8 years old. The year I turned 8 was wild. So my dad had left, moved to Washington. The whole side of that family left and didn't tell me until they got there. And my mom got pregnant, got married to my stepdad. My stepdad had a son that was also my age. And so it was just like so much change happened in that year. I don't know why or how, but my parents, and when I say my parents, I'm referring to my stepdad and my mom. We went to church. We all went to church. Don't know why, what called them to it, but we all started going to church, and I really felt the community. But I think, actually I know, I encountered the Holy Spirit multiple times, and it was also the thought that I can have a Heavenly Father that will love me unconditionally and not leave me. I felt hurt by both of my parents at that time, and I was like, no one loves me. And so from there, I was baptized at 8, and a lot of people get baptized as kids, but then they get baptized again because they, actually really have a relationship with God. But I'm like, no, I was baptized at 8 because I truly had an encounter with the Lord and been riding with him ever since. I am here today because of him.
The Bible, the scripture, everything that is from God is already in here. I was born with the word of God. Yeah. There are a lot of things that have happened in my life that I knew right from wrong, and it was just a feeling. You cannot teach those feelings. So when you see something happening and it makes you feel a certain way, that is your intuition saying, hey, tap into it, please. What God truly intended, the way for us to live and have love and acceptance, compassion for other people, we were all born with it. We all have it. It's just a choice if you're going to tap into it or not.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't need to read the Bible to know of this God I believe in, right? But what I will not do is allow people to teach me about a God when I can learn from him on my own. I don't need to read the Bible from beginning to end to know God. You know? So I think that is a very important message for me because, again, for so many years, I haven't been able to truly talk about my experience with God because I didn't feel like it would be okay. Some people are going to listen to this episode and be like, I did not know that he had this relationship with God, right? Again, I don't necessarily parade it because I'm ashamed. It's just because for so many years I was told I was not allowed to.
So I wanted to tap into something a little bit. So going into the Bible, I started reading the Bible last year, and the stories in there are just wild, crazy. Just seeing what people were going through and just learning how God has shown up for them. And it's really helped me with like accepting God's love. The love that's not going to hurt me is really hard to receive. Do you ever have that? Like, is it hard to receive that sometimes?
Yes, and I think a lot of it comes from the idea that we self-punish ourselves. And just so you know, whenever I say God, God to me comes in a lot of different forms. God to me is not just this one being, right? Or this one energy. I find God in the wind, when I'm in the water. When I refer to God, I don't think of God as this one-dimensional being. We sometimes don't feel like we're worthy of such a Holy Spirit coming into our life, right? I've been sexually active with men when I was told that was so disgusting, right? So how does someone so disgusting like me get the Holy Spirit or has this interaction with God when I'm such an awful, disgusting human being? So I think for so many years you don't tap into it because of that. So yes, you know, I think that happens a lot because we just don't feel like we're worthy of it.
God just wants us as we are.
You said something about reading the Bible just a year ago. If there's anything I want our listeners to take from this conversation, you choose when it's your time to seek that type of relationship.
Absolutely.
It cannot be taught. It's the same way I feel about intuition and tapping into it. You cannot teach it to people. We all have it in here. We all know right from wrong in here. You choose whether you're going to tap into it. And sometimes it's okay for you to maybe not ever tap into it. And I don't think that if you don't tap into it, you're a bad person. Or you're causing harm to others. But I do think that it's so important to just self-reflect and realize that it doesn't have to be the Christian Bible, a Catholic Bible, or anything like that. It's just tap into what your heart says. Tap into when your hair starts to stand up a certain way. Tap into those emotions instead of dismissing them. That's tapping into your connection with whatever God it is you believe in. Skipping forward.
Okay.
Let's just have a little kiki.
Something light.
Interesting. I know.
We're even getting deep.
There are all these Bible thumpers and that podcast has changed. Gosh. I noticed on Instagram. Oh no, I'm nervous. You posted. No, don't be nervous.
Okay, go. Okay.
I was being a nosy neighbor though. The guy that opened the door for you. Okay.
So it was an influencer event. And so I was like, y'all, my DMs are blowing up over this man. I'm like, did I just miss out on my husband? Because he was so nice. He was so sweet. He was literally just like the security guard. Just so nice. Because I was like, hey, like, do you mind opening up the door for me again? Because he did it twice. Because I was like, I need to get my shot.
That's right.
That's why I'm here.
That's right. Interesting that he did it multiple times to get a good shot, and there was something so genuine about the way he did it that I was like, I wonder if that's for me. You know?
No, and I think other people felt, my DMs haven't blown up like this in a hot minute, because something about me, I've never been on a date ever.
No,
I've never been on a date. I've never kissed anybody.
How old are you?
I'm 23.
Get out of here. You're a baby.
Yeah, I'm a baby.
You're a baby.
Yeah, I'm 23. I'm 23. I wouldn't consider myself a late bloomer. I'm somebody who I experienced heartbreak at a very young age. It wasn't in a romantic relationship, but it was with my parents. So I've just been very protective with my heart. I'm very secure with myself, but something I realized, with self-love and self-worth is I wanted to protect my heart. Life is going to be hard enough as it is. It's going to throw things at me. I don't need to make it more difficult for myself. I just want to be kind to people. I don't want the drama, really. I mean, I'll watch it. I will watch it. Okay, I'm watching Love is Blind right now.
Me too.
Yeah!
Me too.
It's so
Me
good.
too.
Oh, so good. Personally, how I envision, the relationship I want my man to pray over me, and I want to pray over my man. A lot of people don't like to be alone. I do.
Yeah.
I get to give myself things that I didn't get in my childhood. Yeah.
For someone who is 11 years older than you, okay, taking your time when it comes to dating is so beautiful. No offense, boomers. But a lot of them did think high school, college, marriage, kid, live in one house for the rest of your life. Our generation is not really tied to those things.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that in a way it's kind of a beautiful thing because you're not rushing into something because it was the norm. I personally myself, it wasn't until I was maybe 28, 29 when I took myself out on a date for the first time. I actually didn't even eat in public. By myself or go to a movie by myself because I had developed all these insecurities of people are going to be like, he's a loser, he's a loner, or oh my gosh, eating by yourself, that's so embarrassing. And finally that year I'm like, you know what, I'm going to just start taking myself out on those dates. It wasn't until I started doing those things for myself that all of a sudden people were like, hey, I'd like to take you out on a date. Things just kind of started to fall into place like that. So I do always encourage everyone, take your time when it comes to exploring a relationship with someone because what you get out of a relationship, yes, it's beautiful, but it's so much better when you give it to yourself first.
Yes,
So,
date yourself.
Date yourself.
Being by yourself is just so freeing, and I'm able to, things come up, I'm like, ask myself why, give myself space to really dig deep. And what I've noticed is that it changed my perspective. Instead of thinking like, oh, my partner will fulfill this for me.
Right.
I fulfill this for myself, and you don't have to put that expectation on somebody whose job was to never do that in the first place, because mind you, they're dealing with their own stuff.
Right.
They're human. If you put on them, they need to make me happy, they need to make me feel confident, that's not really their job. Okay, it's really not their job. It's a bonus, but that should come from within. And I'm very much in a season right now about controlling what I can and just controlling my behavior. Like if I show up somewhere, I'm like, I control if I have a good time, not anybody else. Even if somebody says something to me or something happens, it's really up to me of how I react to things. It's a choice,
absolutely.
Yeah, and I've just been enjoying so much with that power of I get to control myself because, ooh, baby, I like to control everybody at first. And then when you realize you can't, it just feels like chaos. Yeah. But just releasing that has been really nice.
Love it.
Yeah.
Have you checked your phone to see if your brother's checked in with you?
Oh my God, no. It was so great meeting you and just talking with you.
Yes. I think the best part about our meeting for the first time today, I felt like I was catching up with someone who I had already talked about these things. I didn't know we were going to talk about race, religion, your dating life, the Bible. It was so unplanned, but that's what I want these Stranger Danger episodes to be all about. I don't want to prep someone on what are the topics we're going to touch on or what are we not allowed to talk about. We can talk about all of it.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. I want to meet people, and hopefully Stranger Danger is also a really good pivotal point for a lot of people to realize he's had so much diversity in that podcast, and yet they were still able to enjoy their time together. Yeah. Right? Because I'm sure maybe another guest will have opposing feelings. There's a misconception that because we've had these negative experiences with primarily white people, that you would think that we would not treat white people with respect. And I never go into a situation with that hurt. Yeah. But that's so important to know. It is a choice. Yeah. Right? It
absolutely is. I think about character. I'm like, who do I want to be? I want somebody to feel safe around me, to have, disagreeing thoughts, someone who feels seen when they're with me, and also that they feel loved and cared about. Like, even if you're a stranger, like, I want to bring that to a conversation.
You do that very well, by the way.
Thank you. I've it's been a lot of inner work and being very intentional.
Yeah.
Because I realize as soon as you're not an adult, people stop kind of caring about you because they're like, well, you're not a kid anymore, I don't care. And seeing that, how so many people yearned for that, I was like, if I can bring that to people, that would be such a gift.
When it comes to white people, we do also feel for the white people that did not grow up with an environment where they had people that were ignorant towards other races, and that it's cost them such a bad rap.
Absolutely.
I think that's also something that goes untalked about, right? Like, oh, we don't want to give white people the sympathy, but I really do feel for the white people who they don't make people feel the way others have made us feel, and yet they're punished for it. This is truly just to bring light to our experiences and share part of our journey, and that's part of getting to know someone, right?
Absolutely. You know? I thoroughly enjoyed my time. Thanks for being vulnerable with me, because you matched it. Not everybody always matches it. That's totally fine, but you brought that too, and I think that allowed us to have like just a deeper conversation. So thank you so much for holding space for me.
Look at us using social media to actually socializing.
Come on.
To network and meet people, and it's not just a number. It's not just to influence. It's not for any of the things that social media has taken the turn for, which aren't always bad. I love that we were able to go back to that root of what started social media, the intention behind social media, even though I'm sure there was an agenda to get people more hooked on their phones, whatever. But I like that we're grabbing that intention and doing something good with it. And I think meeting people is something beautiful. I think that right now, while every podcaster is trying to get this interview with a celebrity, I want to go in a different direction. And I want to really connect with people that aren't always highlighted. So many people aren't celebrities. They like being highlighted. They like to be heard. Yes, I do have some recording artists that will be on the podcast in the future. And yes, I do intend to take it there. But right now, this was my calling. So thank you for being a part of that.
Absolutely. Y'all, this podcast is about to blow up. I'm just going to let y'all know. Keep watching. Keep subscribing. And I can't wait to see what happens for you.
Stranger danger.
Stranger danger.